Okay, so this is a panel discussion about game developers, and about game development, about making games. And since we Lithuanians are very friendly people, and when there is one Lithuanian non-speaking guy out of four, we turn all into English, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we already know Henrik, and I will ask to introduce themselves, the rest of the gang. And the question will be a bit, maybe more difficult. Please tell what's your work that you are most proud of and not most proud of. Who's there's daring one?
Okay, hello all, I'm Žaidimų. Currently, we with my brother, we have a game development company, Time of Joy, and we're developing games, obviously. And we don't have really much of our games released. Our games released, we mostly did outsourcing. So what I'm proud of, the game we are currently doing, it's like Pokemon Go, but we released it like 2 years ago, the first version. So, and I'm least proud of that I worked at the bank before.
Who didn't?
What's wrong with the bank? I'm Aras, and I've been dabbling in the sort of Lithuanian games industry since the last millennium. Right now I'm working at Unity, which is kind of this small game engine. I've been doing that for 11 years. So I'm kind of torn what I'm most proud of. So one thing I'm proud of is that, you know, I started working in this game engine that no one has heard about, and I managed to not be fired while Unity just continued growing in popularity. So that's kind of a thing to be proud of, I guess. I'm also proud of this little sort of Doom 2 clone that I made, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, that no one has heard about, but everyone was making Doom 2 clones back then. So, yeah. And what I'm least proud of, I don't know. So one time, about 10 or 12 years ago, we were working on this, probably still the biggest strategy game in Lithuania. Siberian Conflict, it was called, right? And I think I was like a programmer there, and I fucked up something like massively. I think I like broke a build for a week or whatever. But it was pretty embarrassing.
Hello, I'm Karlis Balčius. I am an indie coordinator at Gaming Exhibition, and I also make sounds for video games. One of them is Streets of Cyberworld. You may have had a chance to try it out. It's currently in paper version, so that's the thing I'm not proud of, because there's still no setup for a game. And I also managed to sneak around into VR scene and make sound and music for VR games, as well as direct some of them, which I haven't yet.
Yeah, most and least proud moments. Well, I guess I'm most happy about Crusader Kings 2. I think that's my crowning achievement, really. It's that way with children too. I think you have a favorite child. I'd have to say it's Crusader Kings 2. Biggest failure, I think it's very hard. I transitioned from being like a programmer to game designer, and now I lead all the game designers. It's been a very hard transition to make, to inspire other people and teach them how to design games and not be so hands-on anymore. So that's been difficult.
Alright, let's talk about games and about changes in games. How all the games has changed during the last, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. Like, I remember a very good cartoon with the map of Doom and the map of a current game, I don't know, maybe some Modern Warfare or something like that. And Doom is some maze, amazing maze, and current shooter is just a corridor with attack trigger, attack trigger, attack trigger. So how did the games change and why did it happen?
How did the games change? Could you repeat that question again?
How did the games change?
In general.
I mean, yes, in general, in designing game design or user experience, game experience for a player.
So I just have some insights from an indie game perspective, maybe. Because I really needed a job as a sound designer, I've gotten into this whole indie scene because you will never start with a sound for a AAA title, right? And in years, especially in recent ones, I've seen a huge peak towards narrative focus of games, and especially for indies, up until where it reached a point where people started actually questioning gameplay value of games. I mean, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Thomas Was Alone or Firewatch, the later referenced as a walking simulator. But I think that's a good thing. I think that especially indie games nowadays tend to move user emotionally, spiritually. That's
on the other hand, you know, sort of you bring up Firewatch, and I was talking with the guys who made sort of similar sort of narrative-driven experience. It's a game called Inside, which is kind of successor to Limbo, if you know that. So apparently narrative-driven games are, you know, like a good thing. On the other hand, they have really hard time, you know, selling them because of Twitch. So yeah, so being a narrative-driven game in an era where Twitch exists is kind of hard financially.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's always a risky move to pull off an indie game which is like this story-wise focused. And I think some of Lithuanian game, that's what actually, that's a little bit of shameless self-promotion over here, what we encourage at Game On for other indie studios and indie publishers to come and inspire Lithuanian game devs to start making stuff like that. The only problem I see with heavily narrative-driven games is that at some point they seem to appear self-executive, I don't know if that's even a term, where a player...
interactive,
yeah, exactly.
Yes, so yeah, I agree with you, but I think we could look broader in the sense of like 13 years, and the game development and games changed a lot because previously it was like one person team, one person game. Now it's like from 1 to 100 to 1,000 person develop one game, and in a lot of sense it changed how the games are developed and how the games are played, and for what purposes games are developed. We now have like those AAA games, we now have those puzzlers and indie games, and we have all kinds of experiences, interactive games and non-interactive games for entertainment, games for serious stuff, and we have games for like not fun games that trigger emotions that we don't really like to have. I think it's the same with film industry. Like when it started, and like 100 years ago, it was like one kind of films, and later they diverged in all ways. And I think the games are like evolving in a similar matter. They diverge. They like change naturally and like have different audiences for different kind of games.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to bring up narrative because there is a lot of experimentation going on in narrative for sure. And I'm very interested in procedural narrative. It's difficult to get it right, but it's the holy grail for me in a way. Because for Paradox, a model that has served us really well is the long tail of a game. That it doesn't die. So we don't release it and then forget about it. We want to keep it going. So for us monthly active users, it's more important really than the initial sales of the game. And therefore, I don't know, have you gone back and played like The Walking Dead past 1 or 2 times? I'm not one of those guys. I mean, I don't want to bash them at all. It's a fantastic emotional experience, and I love them. But it's more for me like watching a television episode. And you can make some money off that, but I think more money is to be made in games that people come back and play for a longer period.
Okay, the Lithuanian game scene and game development scene. I have a question for Henrik. Do you know any Lithuanian game? Do you know any Lithuanian-made game?
Well, I've heard this Siberian TSI, was it?
Didn't you Google it?
Sorry?
Didn't you Google it, right? You're being honest, yeah? You heard it, you didn't Google it.
No, I heard about it when I got here. So sorry. No, I didn't. I wasn't aware of it. I'm trying harder to think of any Lithuanian game that I come up with.
So, okay, so that's a question for the rest of the guys. How do you see the local...
I think he can start because he's the oldest one.
Am I the oldest one?
Shit.
Back in my day. So you know, each time someone says like, oh, so when Lithuania finally will make something like The Witcher, it's. So I think that there's several things. One of them, Poland is literally 10 times bigger than Lithuania. That gives you something, you know. So what I usually say is that, you know, list me the games made in Belgium. So who knows Belgian games? So, you know, Lithuania is a small country. Of course, you can counter that with, you know, Iceland barely has, you know, 300,000 people, and they still made, you know, EVE Online. The other thing is that no one actually gives a shit about which country made a game. You know, no one really cares. Well, Lithuanians do, but you know, that's probably, you know, sort of...
Lithuanian complex.
Yeah, like a sort of small country mentality is that, you know, if we made a game, then suddenly everyone would know where Lithuania is. No one gives a shit. Sorry, but you know, that's true.
Yeah, I can agree with you because I made a presentation like half a year ago for children, school children, and I listed the games that are released on Steam, Lithuanian games. And when I showed that slide, some students from first row said, "Oh, these games are made in Lithuania, I play them." So yeah, they don't care where they are made, they just play the games because they are interesting or not. And
I sometimes get the question, actually it's a very difficult question to answer by journalists. How come Sweden is so big on entertainment? You know, we make computer games, we have DICE, we have Avalanche, we have like Starbreeze computer games, Mojang, Minecraft, you know. All kinds of companies come from Sweden. Also, like music, artists. And I think it's a sign of decadence, is what I answer. You know, we are postmodern. People expect to be entertained and not do any hard work anymore.
yeah, on the other hand, I think our Lithuanian game development scene is growing and growing a lot because like 10-15 years ago there were us and like 15 more guys that were at game jams, and it was all the scene. And now it's like 700 people that come to game jams, and even more that create games at the home and don't come to events, don't go to events. And again, you could look at the Steam, and we have like I think 10 games that I know of developed in Lithuania or by Lithuanians released on Steam, and 7 of them were released this year. So I think that says a lot.
I also don't think that we should, you know, keep looking up to Witcher only and go like AAA big. I mean, there are quality indie games out there, and I don't know any Lithuanian game that would be as good as, let's say, Inside or anything like it. And I think the reason of that is because Lithuanian game developers simply don't have enough knowledge or courage in regards of gaming business. And it's, at this point, I think it's very important to separate gaming business from actual game development. I think some of younger game developers lack knowledge or, I don't know, approach techniques to successfully pitch their ideas, you know, to the market. It seems that game developers in Lithuania are afraid of showing off, you know. And when we have Witcher and a country like Poland, which has way deeper roots when it comes to gaming business, it's kind of self-explanatory, Witcher case. Also, I think a perfect example of Lithuanian good orientation towards gaming business is Nordcurrent, right? Guys who started it like more than 10 years ago, and look at them now. And they were 20, and they were heavily business oriented. So that proves that there are talent out there in Lithuania. It's only a matter of time, I think, till we, I don't know, beat that Lithuanian complex, or I don't know, that's even more, but to start oriented towards gaming business and pitch our stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned Nordcurrent, which is, of course, lately specialized in mobile gaming. And this is a gaming style that came less than 10 years ago. Less than 10 years ago, we had only a Snake and something like that. What are your thoughts on mobile gaming?
I think it's, you know, VR and AR aside, it's the biggest event that's happened in gaming. Really, you know, I used to think that massive multiplayer games were the, you know, big revolution or something, but I think it's really mobile games. As I mentioned during my talk, people who don't see themselves as gamers play these games. And if people like my mother and so on can actually be brought into games, you know, you can imagine the potential that has. So, again, from the business perspective, especially, you know, it's very appealing. I don't personally play casual games much because I need to set aside, to get into something, I need to set aside like 4 hours at least to just do it. But I think it's amazing.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the history, it's sort of pretty obvious that every 10 years or so there's sort of a big new platform or sort of big new shift that appears. You know, so it used to be, you know, in the early 90s when 3D started appearing, and suddenly all the games had to be 3D, even though they had no reason to. You know, that's, I think, what killed probably adventure games, because they tried to be 3D games for no reason whatsoever. Then sort of you had the MMO rush, where everyone tried to beat, you know, World of Warcraft. Majority of them didn't succeed at all. Then you had sort of the early social/casual games on Facebook and stuff like that, or like Flash games, right? Then you had mobile games. Now possibly you will have VR games, though sort of the jury's still out there. So, and it's usually that the first few years are sort of the gold rush, where sort of the platform suddenly takes off. People who hopped early onto the platform can earn a lot of money without sort of big even attempts or something. So mobile, I think it's over that phase now. Like the polish that is required in mobile game is already pretty high. You have to pay a lot of money to get user acquisition and stuff like that, even though sort of once in a while there's still technically unpolished game like Pokemon Go that takes off and, you know, suddenly is the fastest game ever that has earned $500 million. But technically it's actually pretty terrible, and gameplay-wise it's actually pretty terrible too. So I think sort of once in a while you get these crown jewels that no one could have ever predicted. But what was the question about? Because I probably went off tangent. General thoughts about mobile gaming. So I'm not a game developer myself these days. Like, I work at a technology company that provides technology to game developers. And there's a saying that in every gold rush, the people who actually earn the money are the ones who are selling the shovels. So I'm pretty happy in the place where I'm selling the shovels to like whoever, you know. So we hopped into mobile with Unity, we hopped into VR with Unity and so on. So that's a pretty good place to be. So like, I'm all for new platforms appearing out of nowhere and suddenly taking off.
Yeah, one of my thoughts was that like Unity helped a lot for mobile, and the general engines helped a lot because it made possible for casual people, casual programmers, designers, visual designers, to make games and publish them themselves without publishers, without like distribution, just to push to the store and that's it. And on the other hand, I think the mobile market, it's different because different people play mobile games. You could compare it to those flash games that were before the social revolution, before the mobile revolution. There were those flash game sites, those casual games like Minesweeper that were pre-installed on your Windows. Those people who played those games, those kind of games, I think they nowadays play those mobile games. So it's kind of different audience and different type of games with different gameplays and different goals. So it's just different.
But talking about the very side, for somebody decides to be a game developer, where is it the easiest way? Go into the classical platforms or mobile gaming?
Just go for Steam now, I think.
Yeah, if you're looking for easy life, then don't be a game developer. Just go work for a bank or something. No, really, it's much easier. But I think in mobile, so I know like plenty of people who make not these, you know, Candy Crush style games, but make sort of different, more niche mobile games, and that sort of can survive as a company. That is sort of fairly hard to do. And actually, some of the best game experience that I had in the past few years were actually on iPad, with really sort of deep. Well, I like narrative-driven games, so with really deep sort of narrative, with really strong emotions and so on and so forth. And these people can survive because mobile is a big enough market that if you're a company with 5 to 10 people and you make really good, even niche games, you can survive on mobile. You will never make millions and you will never retire in 3 years, but you can survive and you can make things that sort of you like, if they are really good. But sort of the days of just making anything and pushing it to App Store and earning enough money are over. You have to try really hard no matter what you do. So probably easier right now is already Steam, sort of. Whereas 5 years ago it looked that PC gaming is dead. Now it seems to me that, it turns out it's not dead. So I don't know, if you're a company of 5 to 10 people and you make something, probably Steam is the most viable market right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think making a PC game is easier probably. And, it's pretty easy to survive. It's pretty hard to really make the billions that Marcus Persson did with Minecraft, for example. So don't set your sights too high. I think don't overcomplicate things and don't try to do too much at once. It's also my advice. Make a fairly simple game, get it out there, build awareness for that game, and then from there, the sky is the limit.
And also, these days getting onto consoles is way easier than it used to be 10 years ago. Like, if you're making a game for PC and it would play suitably, like not all game genres translate to consoles obviously, but if it would be okay on like PS4 or whatever, then 10 years ago it used to be that PS4, a dev kit would cost $15,000 or something, but these days you can probably get one for $4,000 or maybe even for free if you ask Sony nicely enough and your game is good enough. So getting onto consoles is also way, way easier than it used to.
One cursed name was already told, Pokemon Go. Are there any Pokemoners or ingressors here? Good. Okay, what are your thoughts about geo gaming? This is quite new stuff. Will it develop further? When will we have more clones? When the Pokemon will die? Etc.
Why? You're biased. You're the most perfect expert to.
Okay, actually, we in our company, we believe that we believed it like 3 years ago and 4 years ago, and we still believe that augmented reality and Pokemon-style games, they will have an audience. Maybe it will be a niche audience, but it will be a quite huge one because it's quite different, and it was shown by Pokemon Go that it exists. You could say that it's like the next MMO, like MMO in real life, with different setting than real life, where you can go just like to the movies, and by the way, you could talk with some kind of RPG character there that stands in virtual reality on your augmented reality on your iPhone or iPad, and he can give you a quest to go to the other place, then you go to the other place, and you just explore the real world. So we believe in it. That's why we're making this kind of game, and I don't really know how to say anything else.
Well, no, I mean, there are niches for most types of games. You know, if you're aiming for the lowest common denominator, then you should probably do a game like Farmville or, you know, Candy Crush or something to reach the most number of people you possibly can. But that's not the way forward. You know, that you probably shouldn't start doing that. Well, maybe if you come up with some really good idea, you can try that, but I don't think it's realistic. But geogaming, I can see a lot of interesting applications for that. I would like to do some kind of assassination game. I think that'd be awesome. Yeah, I like killing people. All right. But personally, I like to stay inside and don't physically exert myself too much.
Yeah, well, with Pokemon Go, at least to me, it's actually a mystery in why it's so successful. I think because, you know, technically it's actually really buggy and it's really unpolished. The app is like it wouldn't pass, you know, the bar that's required for a modern mobile experience, because most of the other mobile popular games are actually super polished. So the game loop itself is also actually not very deep. Like there's like the game part of the Pokemon Go, there's nothing actually to do there. So I think it probably taps into two strong things. So one is the hunting instinct from humans, right? And the other one is, you know, just having Pokemon in the name, which probably helps a bit. So you combine these two, and suddenly you got, you know, $500 million. And though, you know, you couldn't say that it's just random fluke, because it's basically built by the same guys who built Ingress and who built the Google Earth, you know, 10 years ago. So, you know, they know their shit about geo or whatever, right? It's just, it's a mystery in why exactly these two, you know, geolocation, Pokemon in the name, and just basic hunting instinct, and why exactly that combines into $500 million, I don't know.
I think one of the reasons why Pokemon is so successful is just simple nostalgia thing. I mean, we were all these kids who were watching Pokemon and, oh man, I wish I could catch them all. No, I think it just simply is that.
I'm not sure. Like my kids went really big on Pokemon. They have never seen the actual Pokemon cartoons. They're too young for that.
I think it's a natural thing that you could, like, Pokemon, the idea of Pokemon, it's like naturally extends to the real world. And that's why we also made kind of similar game. We're making similar game because it really naturally extends to the real world. You go hunting, you go collecting, and you just go out. So yeah, the Pokemon name, I think it did a lot for the marketing and for the popularity. The other stuff you mentioned, that it's buggy and has no gameplay value, yeah, that's true, but it's a different thing. And compared to Ingress, it's like it's simpler and it's prettier in a way. So I think it's that's why it's much more popular.
Sorry, I think you guys should consider wonder also the social aspect of the game. Because once it just came out, like, you guys should know that there were a lot of people in the town square. There was a Pokestop there, people would throw down their incense, and people would just gather around the place. They would socialize, and they would play the games together. And the fact that it is a mobile game means that it is the casual audience that plays it. And the social aspect is very important for it. So I think that also played a large part in this decision.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think with Pokemon, you brought up interesting points, both of you, nostalgia and the collecting instinct, basically. I think when it comes to kids, they've always liked collecting things. I know collectible card games have been around forever and ever, baseball stars. When I was a kid, we used to collect cards with airplanes, with stats, horsepower and stuff. So it's always been around. Kids like collecting. In fact, I should probably put collecting as one of the main genres of gaming. There is an instinct there. We want to catch them all, even if it's not formulated that elegantly, like Nintendo.
Yeah, and extending on your comment, it's like, yeah, you're definitely right, and you could compare it to World of Warcraft, where it wasn't casual, but it had like that social aspect, and you can extend it to the casual audience, and it has social aspects, so yeah, much more players.
Yeah, and for those, all of you guys, if you're interested, we're having notes about the ingress in the Pokemon presentation and the view from the maybe psychological and historical side later this evening. Okay, one question about each of you. How was each of your way to game development? What was your start? In a short way, like in 1 minute?
Okay, I started playing games. I really liked them. Then I thought maybe I could start making them. Then, I was still in school, so I went to the internet. I found Game Dev LT forum. Then I went to the meetings. I saw inspiring people there, and then I started to think about it like some kind of career or future job.
So that's when you quit your bank job. I actually never thought about game development. So like the first computer that I got in like '95 or something. So it came with a book, with like programming book, because it was like a ZX Spectrum, whatever. So the only thing you could do is basically type in something with basic code. And the very first thing that I typed in from that book drew some picture on the screen, and it was so beautiful. Like, it was so beautiful. I was thinking, I want to do this for the rest of my life, and that's why basically I'm a graphics programmer. And now, a graphics programmer, that makes sense in the games industry, and I guess in the movie industry, and not much elsewhere. So it's kind of a natural progression. And I remember at the university, a bunch of actually teachers would say, like, why you guys keep on doing this sort of for the homework or whatever, all these things related to games or to graphics or whatever. Like, you will never earn any significant living out of that. Like, there's no jobs like that, in the world. And we were like, yeah, but, it's kind of interesting, so here we are.
I've started playing games when I was a little kid, and I started making music when I was a little kid. When I was playing games, I wasn't making any music. When I was making music, I wasn't playing any games. So, game development and making sound design and music for that just seemed like a perfect spot.
Yeah, I've always played games, basically, since I was a kid. I also had a ZX Spectrum, a great computer, rubber keys, nostalgic memories of that. So I always viewed myself as a gamer. I never really had the ambition of becoming a game developer. I liked programming and I liked to play games, but it just happened. I made a mod and then I got hired, and of course that's an offer you cannot refuse.
Okay, so we are Lithuanians are known as depressive people, and final question, because we are running out of time a bit. Is there anything that disappoints you in game development? That would you change in any way or another?
Yeah, there is nothing. There isn't enough time to make everything you want because you want to make perfect games, but you can't. So you have to choose something that would be nice to fix.
Is there a question about games industry or like regular day-to-day job or like regular day-to-day job? I think it's mostly that like you could imagine that game development is like this awesome job, you know, like I'll get to play the games while I'm doing them, and it looks nothing like, you know, like the game, like people who do game QA, they have to jump 1,000 times in the same corner, right, every day. People who do like game levels, you have to, you know, endlessly tweak where the wall is placed and which way the door is open or whatever. So like people who do graphics programmers, you know, you spend like 2 days looking for something, and turns out there was like a sign flip somewhere, right? You know? So it's basically, you know, day-to-day job. A lot of the actual tasks that you do are actually pretty boring, but sometimes the result is worth it. And it's not a bank, so.
I don't know, for me it would be just seeing young game developers throwing out their original ideas and, you know, just giving up to fear, which is completely reasonable, and then of course choosing the easier path to like copying another game and maybe adjusting it slightly, and that's reasonable, but yeah, that's disappointing. That's life.
I absolutely agree. I think, you know, try and do new things instead of just treading the same old territory. And you have that opportunity these days as a startup, you know, and that's how you get noticed as well. Do something new. That sounds easy, but it's not really.
Right. On the other hand, if I might expand into what I'm disappointed as a games industry as a whole, like, or the community, so, you know, once in a while you get these crazy ideas that some of them take off, like Minecraft or whatever, right? Like, if there were a publisher at the time, no one could have funded Minecraft, because it was just a wrong idea. Like, this would never work. You know, the graphics are shit. You know, the gameplay, there's nothing but stacking blocks into one another, right? So no one could have predicted Minecraft, but it took off. And it's a brilliant idea. On the other hand, you have some, you know, some really ambitious people, like the most recent example is probably No Man's Sky. Super ambitious indie team. Now they probably should try to do more than they could have done, but then sort of the actual gaming community basically puts them to shit. So, and then you basically want, at the same time they ask for more innovative games. So I'm kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, No Man's Sky in a way reminds me of Dwarf Fortress. Because, you know, it's a game that is too wildly ambitious, but, you know, it's still a success in a way. Now, I love Dwarf Fortress, I play it quite often, but, you know, it's just not being properly developed because it's all over the place. So know your limits, I would say.
So, thank you for all the guests and all the audience. Thank you.